Okay, so I'm going to go to full screen mode as we are to share that to you just for the moment. This is the Introduction to Tapestry webinar. I'm hoping to be able to make this first part of it quite swift. Just giving you a brief overview of the app, of the package of Tapestry, I should say, really. We are Digital Learning Cornwall, which is part of the Aspire Academy Trust, group of 28 primary schools. And our opinion on everything is independent, so we always can give you a touch of real about all of this stuff, and give you some insight into how features of programs are really being implemented. And I've been working closely with Tapestry product for probably about 5 years now, so know my way around it pretty well. Having said that, there have been a number of updates to it in recent times. I will not go into the really heavy stuff involved in Tapestry, the data facilities in there as much as I can, because I know that this is an introduction to Tapestry and lots of people are here for a first glimpse of how it works, and as just a little taster for what might be happening in September. So if there's anything in here that bamboozles you and just makes you think, oh my goodness, that's complicated, or you know, I just really need to have a go at that myself, it's true. You do need to pick up your tablet device or whatever it is you're using to work with Tapestry, and that will be your way into it and your way to feel most comfortable with making observations, which you can see is third on the list here, but possibly, you know, really important part of what you should be able to get out of this. So let's just go on here. So the EdTech Demonstrator Programme, thank you very much to those schools external to Aspire who've filled in that form for us. That's brilliant. I will be chasing a few of you just to fill in a few-minute form if you are not an Aspire Academy Trust school. So Tapestry, let's just think in broader terms about it. Why are schools using it? Schools have traditionally put together journals, or rather when digital cameras came along, this became the thing of using digital cameras and tablets to take photos and print them and put them into learning journals, or sometimes called learning journeys. A4 books full of pictures and writing and all of that stuff that, you know, in many ways was a lovely document for an early years setting to produce. However, very, very time consuming, if not material consuming as well, with printing and sticking and all of those things. Engagement with relatives is, you know, a full major focus of this package. It's one of the main reasons for having it, in that a setting can engage and communicate with lots and lots of relatives, show off the brilliant practice that's going on in a setting, and communicate some of the things that are going on in an early year setting with mums, dads, granddads, and whoever the relatives of those children are. So that side of it is undoubtedly one of the huge gains from it. I have to say, when I first started getting into that side of it, it was, you know, made me think of Facebook for 4-year-olds or anything like that. It has to be said, it's a locked down system that will allow you to do this well. And there are a few bits and pieces that people managing Tapestry accounts will want to tweak so that the engagement with relatives works better. Down here, in terms of data, I didn't get into teaching in order to decide that I was going to, you know, stick barcodes on children's heads or label them age 5 as this, that, or the other. But Tapestry does manage to do the data processes that early year settings have to do in a very streamlined way, if you know how to use it well. Okay, if there are people who want to find out more, I'll be running more webinars in the autumn term, and one specifically on Tapestry with data. as well as the, the requirements for early years setting, there is an aspect of Tapestry in terms of data, which I think is really quite makes it quite an inclusive tool, quite a leveler, in that it shows us those children that have got lots of observations, those children that have less observations, and it also allows us to look at the curriculum breadth and decide, find certain areas that we haven't really covered so much. And I know that there is some significant change to the early years criteria for next year, and of course Tapestry is going to be incorporating that. Now down here it says it's used by over 17,000 settings. I have a feeling that's probably more like 18,000 now, maybe more. You can tell when a product is onto something good when it seems to snowball and settings use it and use it again. And the fact that Tapestry don't really spend that much time marketing their product either. It's just kind of word of mouth. And of course, with the remote learning that's been going on recently, there are some extra features that have come into Tapestry. So that's why settings using Tapestry. We can't cover all of that here with an introduction, nor would you want me to, but it gives you an idea of the main reasons why this product is working out well. So let's just talk in general terms about Tapestry and the ways in which you can access this system. It's a cloud-based system, bit like your email that you log in is a cloud-based system, and you can log into it from here or from there or wherever you are, whichever device you're on, you can log into that same account. With Tapestry, it's one main account for a setting normally, and then lots of different accounts for different staff members feeding into that account. So as a teaching assistant, possibly your access to the account will be different to a teacher or a head teacher's access to that account. They will have more management type access in there. As a teaching assistant, you might be in the joyous position of having limited access, and your task is just to make observations and possibly to tag the assessments that come with it as well. So you've got these different ways in. Now the app runs on tablets or mobile devices. It could be a mobile phone. If it's a relative, it's likely to be a mobile phone. If it's somebody in an early years setting, it might be an iPad or an Android tablet, possibly something else. And this is an easy way to upload observations, and it's an easy place for people to check observations as well. So the app is there is a stripped down form of access, and its purpose is to just work on that process of observations back and forth. Is an observation in the journal? Does it need to be approved? All of those types of things can happen in the app. A camera app, at the same time, and of course all tablets and mobiles, phones or whatever have this, can be useful because it's possibly the quickest and most it's the least intrusive way possibly to be working with a device with a group of children. We want to be able to have these devices out of pockets, snap photos of children doing amazing things that they're doing, and then put away again. So the camera app is worth remembering. It has some useful features to it, and lots of settings spend a lot of time with the camera app taking photos during a day, and then they may well use this to upload, or they might go to the web browser to upload. Now the web browser is where the most powerful access is. If you're a head teacher, manager of an account, that's where you go to make all of your changes and things within Tapestry. But again, it can be used as a place for uploading observations, which is what we're going to talk about a bit more now. So let me just shift on. No, we won't talk about that. Okay, let me come out of here, and I'm going to unshare, not share, just for a moment. See that you're all still there, just about, and we'll go through the process of making an observation with a tablet. So this is an iPad, iPad Mini 2, this one, so a few years old, and it might be the type of device that you have in your settings. Is there anyone who wants to say anything else at the moment? I can see that Pete has put, feel free to add your comments and questions here. If you aren't aware of where the chat is, you hover your mouse around in the middle of the screen and you'll see there's a little speech bubble there that you can press. Okay, let's have a go with the app, and let's just, okay, I'm going to share this over to you. I should have done the flashy bit that lets me share the screen of the iPad. So you should be able to see that now. If there's any problems here, Pete, just unmute and give me a give me a shout. So Tapestry app, there it is down the bottom. When I tap on this, your account's set up. You may find that you've got lots of different names to choose from in here, and a pin. So the pin is there to allow a certain amount of security for somebody using a device in the setting. So if a child picks it up, they can't go into your Tapestry account and delete everything or whatever you might be scared of them from doing. You've got observations down the side here. And I apologize for the quality of some of these observations. It's a test account, and you will never get the lovely quality that you get from a test account, rather than looking at a real account with real children in here. But you'll get a sense here of how it works in terms of the chronology of observations is on the left. So you can see they're in date order. And the one that I've got selected here on the right, I've got a picture and there's some text there. And you can also see that there's quite a lot of early years statements attached to that observation. Now, if we look at this observation over here on the left, you'll see that you've got 5th of the 7th, 2020. So it's the 5th of July, 2020. And there are 2 children tagged in this observation. There they are at the bottom there, Abby Johnson and Jessica Wright. And the statements that are there, you can see they're from the early years foundation stage, and this is just mock stuff. But there's a lot there, and when you make observations, one of the key joys of Tapestry is that you can choose lots of statements and they are immediately tagged to an observation, rather than writing out observations into a paper-based journal, which is obviously very time-consuming. And with it done in this way, you've got data there that can be fed into all of the analysis. So let's make an observation. The plus button you'll see in the top left there. If I go for the plus, you'll see that I can add a title in here. I am going to do an observation to do with dinosaurs, dinosaur role play. Miss my capital letter there. I can change that later possibly. And there's an area there for some notes. But let's ignore that for a moment and let's have a look further down. I can, under pictures and video, I can take a picture, I can record video, or I can add from library. Now the add from library is going to pull in photos or videos that I've already taken. So as I pointed out before with the camera, you might have photos, possibly video that you've taken with that camera app, and you're going to just pull them in from there. But I'm not going to do that this time. I'm going to take a picture. I'll take a picture there. I'm going to take a picture of these dinosaurs. In fact, one's a dinosaur, so it's an interesting meeting of different periods of history. But you're going to have to just imagine that that is our observation. I can take another one from here if I like. There we go. And use that. Now I could have used the camera app. Where is it on here? You can see it down the bottom there. See it down the bottom. Could have used the camera app to take pictures and brought them in the same. And of course, that is a very quick and easy way to collect your photos and videos. So that again is probably the first thing to sort of consider. Do I want to be in the app? Do I want to be just using the camera to take photos? If you are taking photos, wherever you're taking photos, you do need to think about, he says, the quality of the shots. I'm not suggesting mine are the best photos around, but taking loads and loads and loads and loads and loads of photos of the children in action without thinking about what is a good photo of the children during their activity is possibly a mistake, because later on you're going to have to kind of pick out the good stuff. So you find a balance between how many photos you're taking and you know, make it work for bringing that stuff into here. So we're making this observation, dinosaur role play. We've got a couple of pictures. I'm going to choose some children here. I'm going to just choose one. All right, now if we were going to talk about this in more developed terms, lots of settings get to the point where they take photos and they actually tag in, say, 4 or 5 or 6 children. If you imagine, you could have some children doing an activity around a sand pit, or some water exploration, or whatever it might be they're doing, particularly those outdoor activities. It's quite possible that you'll take some photos and there's loads of children in them, so you're going to end up tagging more than one child. Now, obviously, there are implications for this in terms of your usage agreement, but that can be quite an efficient way, at least to start observations off. And if you do that, there's a way to split observations so that there's only one child tagged to the same observation. I'm not going to dwell on that for now, because I'm not sure it's going to work quite so well through this webinar situation. We'll stick with just the one child. Assessments, they're down here. And you'll see that you can have whatever assessments you want to be made available for you. So I could choose some from the EYFS. And notice you've got a bookmarks button in the bottom left there. So you can bookmark certain parts of this that are really important to you, whether that's, you know, saying these are really important to me during this week, or they're really important to me for this half term, or whatever. You can bookmark a page. There we go, I've bookmarked it. And so it will become easier to go straight to that bit. If I come in here, you can see now Tapestry really needs you to think in terms of this emerging, developing and secure. I'm on 40 to 60. Someone there wants to mute, that'd be great. I'm on 40 to 60 there. I can scroll through the different age bands. Let's say I'm going to choose these, and of course these are completely nonsensical in terms of my dinosaur picture, but let's just go with that. And I'm going to go for secure on there. Now you'll see that those are then here, and let's actually go in and find something a little bit more relevant to some role play with dinosaurs. Bit of a sad observation, just this dinosaur and the leopard there, but speaking 30 to 50. Let's have some of that. Maybe we were discussing why on earth these two creatures are hanging around together, and it uses a range of tenses, and I'm going to say that that one's developing. So you can see how we can easily build up this assessment type data, and it will go in there. Now, I will say to you, very in case that really worries you, one, it takes time and experience to get your head around the early years foundation stage progression there. So don't feel you have to know everything from the beginning. If this is totally new to you, it's quite possible that a teacher will say to teaching assistants, don't worry about the assessments for now. I will do those. Okay, so you might be the person who makes the observations, but the teacher attaches assessments on there by looking at it. And if you're really, really inexperienced with this, that is probably a good place to start from. I know that teachers ideally, and nursery practitioners, managers, would ideally like all staff to be able to tag assessments. Obviously, it makes sense if you're the person who's made the observation, but it may not be something that's going to work straight away. Also, the choice of age brackets on here is something that you will get a sense of over time as well. Not every observation has to be 100% accurate, because the way Tapestry works is that when you mark out where children have got to at a certain point, so for example, a setting might mark out where children are just before Christmas, where children are just before Easter, and where children are at the end of the year. When that process is done, nothing that's in the observations is final and concrete. It can all be overridden so that the teacher can make the final sort of judgment of where those children are at that point. And indeed, that data can be gone back to and changed. Okay, so if you're using Tapestry as a data system, then don't feel that anything that's in there can't be changed. You don't have to go back into observations necessarily and sort of unpick everything. You can just override it later on. You'll see down here, this is the important part, the status of observation, not in journal. So, and you see there's a few options there. Frankly, hardly any people use staff only. The scheduled option is there in recent times, and that's more to do with setting activities. Tapestry, so we probably ignore that as well. It's the not in journal and the in journal that's so important. If an observation is in the journal, then relatives can see it, and it's at the point where you're basically saying this is finalized and I'm not going to touch it again, I'm not going to change it again. Possibly you could edit it again, but it's a nice way to mark that that one's been done. So if I was a teaching assistant doing this and I'm not particularly confident with Tapestry, I might leave it as not in journal. Indeed, a teaching assistant might not have any other option on their account, but to leave it not in journal, and I would simply leave it like that. And let's just upload this one and you'll see where it goes in. So you should see in a moment that this comes up in here. There we go. Dinosaur Roleplay is there and the picture will appear in a moment. If I go into Dinosaur Roleplay, you'll see it's got the assessments in there. The pictures will appear in a moment. And I can edit it. You'll see down here you've got add to journal. So if you were a teacher, here come the pictures. If you're a teacher, you could be going through add to journal. But I'm going to go back and edit it in a moment in the bottom right. You'll also see sort of slightly hideous use of the word like, which of course makes us think of the original like of Facebook. But the thing about that is that it can be very, very useful for teachers receiving observations from parents, and they just want to acknowledge that it's been done without entering into any sort of comment. You can see there's a comment section there as well. Comments can be ignored or even turned off if you want. Right, let's go back into edit. We're looking at Dinosaur Roleplay. Capital letters distressing me. But again, I don't think schools or nursery settings should get too hung up on you know, there wasn't a capital letter there, or this happened or that happened. If we go down that route, then we probably end up losing some of the benefits of the time saving that we're hoping for. So use good judgment on that. Now, writing some notes. I'm here on a keyboard on a tablet, and you might be quite confident using one of those, or you might not be that confident using one of those. I'm okay at writing like that. So I could say, there we go. You can see some of the limitations there. With the children play with the creatures, discussing why they are in the same time period. Sorry, I am being facetious with this example of creatures, but there we go. If I just come out of there we go. So I typed some text on a touchscreen keyboard, and it was okay, but a bit slow and a bit awkward. It's worth knowing about some of the editing things that you can do on tablets. On an iPad, if you hold down the space bar, you'll get this I-beam that you can move around to edit things. And you can also press and hold to then get that magnifying glass that will let you choose where you want to put, again, the I-beam. Okay, so that's there. It's worth talking about the voice to text function that's in devices like that. You'll see the microphone down there on the bottom left. That's on an iPad. That's always there if you're inputting text and the iPad is reasonably new. I mean, this iPad Mini 2 is probably five years old now, maybe 6 years old. If you've got one of those iPad 2s, they don't have it on. But any more recent devices will. And if you press that, you can press that microphone button, speak into the device, and then tap again on the screen, and you've managed to change your voice into text. So let's just do that. And of course, make sure your finger's not over the microphone, which is on the one end of the device. Here I am speaking into the iPad, and it is changing my voice into text, full stop. I should be able to speak fairly quickly into the device, and it will work out my voice as it goes along, full stop. Don't be worried to race along and let it catch up with your voice, exclamation mark. Okay, so a bit of tech showing off in a way, and I don't want that to just be tech showing off. There are lots of settings up and down the country who are using that and finding circumstances where that is a useful way to put text information into a device, including with Tapestry. Now, of course, you've got noisy settings up and down the country. They may not have been quite as noisy as they would normally be in recent times, but a class full of that 4-year-olds or younger is not a place without noise. And speaking into a device, you need a certain level of quiet there. So it might be that staff are able to get 20 minutes in the day, and I appreciate that that is an ask. And for some settings, as I say, there isn't 20 minutes in the day. It might be that there's a little quieter corner that a staff member can duck into and speak into a device. It might be that it's not really going to work for the TAs, but for the teacher who's sitting at home on a sofa, they find inputting observations in this way to be useful. So I would say to all staff members, think about, is there space in your day? Is there space in your setting for speaking into devices and for that to work? Because as you can see, it's a really, really quick way to get reasonably accurate information in there. And of course, it doesn't matter that it made a mistake, because I can go back and I can change things. Some of the grammatical things it points out are not worth thinking about. Okay. So that's a taste of what the app looks like, and most settings with their tablet devices will have the app on those devices, and it's one of the main things that staff use. If I just go back into that one, so I'm going to go to edit. I'm going to go down to assessments again and see that if I go to pick assessments, I've got Key Stage 1 and Year 1 here. Now this day today was actually prompted because a setting is going to be using Tapestry in Year 1, first of all on the EYFS criteria, and then moving to Year 1 criteria later on. And there are a number of settings that seem to be doing this, pushing into Year 1 and potentially into Year 2 as well, where this way of working still has more sort of worth possibly than further up the school. So I can choose from here some features from the Key Stage 1 Year 1 criteria, and you'll see that it has this tier system in here. I'm not going to talk about this too much today, but again, those settings that are moving to make this work in Year 1 or Year 2, it's worth getting your head around how this tier system works, and because it feeds back into the tracking of those children. And I believe there is a system there that's worth considering in terms of how you're going to track children in those year groups. Right, at the top left it says upload again. Every time I've made changes, I'm going to tap upload, and it all goes back in there, and I can see again my observations here building up. Now before I come out of here, I'll just point out down the bottom left there, it talks about, it says no filters. But if I tap that, I can put a filter on this, display, so that I'm only seeing children from a certain group, children from a certain cohort. So for example, if you've got a mix where your Tapestry account has got nursery and reception in there, or reception in Year 1, you might go and change that, and then it's only going to show, see it says one filter. If I go to done, now it's only showing children who are in the 2019 cohort. Can you see on the bottom left there? So for those settings that are are using one Tapestry account for all of the children, maybe it's in nursery, reception and Year 1, you can get to the ones that are relevant to you by simply putting that filter on the bottom left. And Tapestry will keep that filter on every time you come back into the app. Let's just come out of there, set myself a challenge there. In we go. Back in we go. And you can see on the bottom left there, still cohort 2019. So we're only seeing those children that are important to us. Right. It's a very strange experience to go through that through a webinar, and no doubt I would prefer to be in a room with people discussing it, going through options, taking the occasional comment from people verbally, rather than this virtual manner.
I've got a question for you, Giles.
Go for it,
just to jazz it up a little bit. So obviously you're demonstrating that for us on a tablet.
Yeah.
Have you sort of any experience or suggestions about different types of how different types and sizes of devices might work in an earlier setting?
It's a very good question. In terms of what sorts of devices are recommended for use, and of course it comes down to preference in some ways, whether it's Apple or Android or whatever. Again, that's down to personal preference. I know that a lot of settings tweak towards Apple stuff because people are used to it and it tends to be quite solid, battery life and that type of thing. In terms of the size of the device, this one is 9 inches across, maybe it's a bit less than that. Is it 7, or I can't remember, but it's the mini version of the iPad. The larger ones, in my opinion, tend to be that bit more cumbersome. for lugging around an early years setting. I have seen some settings that have these little straps, so it goes around somebody's neck. Not many places, but they found those useful. The thing I like about this size device is it can just about be tucked away into a pocket, which of course is good for the staff member walking around with it. It does have the downside in that if you're thinking of things getting stolen from your setting, the smaller size seems to be the type of thing that might get slipped into a bag somewhere. But the device is worth thinking about. I have said to settings as well, you know, there was one setting that had some Amazon Kindle Fire tablets that they went for, and they were cheap, but they ended up being a bit nasty for them, and they went back from that and ended up with some Apple devices. All right, and that's a shame to end up spending twice. But at the same time, I would say if you're looking for really good value in this, you could look to potentially reconditioned Apple phones as being having a really nice size screen on them. That's one way, and you would just activate them with a SIM. Or you could look to, you know, if you buy this sort of device now, brand new, they're going to be reasonably expensive. You could look to older tablet devices, but you are going to want to get, you know, you are going to want to get them for not much money really, because otherwise, you know, there's a certain length of time when these devices will work for, as we all know, frustratingly. But you know, looking to reconditioned phones and things like that could be a way to make this work for you.
We've got a question from Bethany Horwell.
Yes,
talking about using Tapestry Key Stage 1. If you're using it just for taking observations, not for doing any assessment elements, can you just ignore the tier sort of classification, or do you have to select something?
Yeah, absolutely. You can. But the lovely thing about Tapestry is you can use it for what you want to use it for. If you know, if there's another data system in place that the school's using for tracking, you can just entirely ignore the tiers or whatever are in there. And in fact, you can adjust the tiers in Tapestry. So it could be that there's just one tier, I think, and then it won't even exist. So various ways to make that work. So if you wanted to tap those objectives and ignore the tier part, you could indeed just ignore the assessments part of it entirely and just build up a load of observations with notes on them. No problem at all doing that. How are we doing for time? I have rattled through fairly quickly and swiftly. If there's anyone else who wants to unmute themselves, that would be brilliant. You could very well explain what your situation is with Tapestry, whether your school is just looking into a new option, whether you're a new staff member and you're moving over to it. It would be great to spark up a little bit of real conversation with one of you watching. Again, the joy of the online webinar with something like this is not always. I think what I will do is share with you what it looks like when you log in through the web. So let's just go and do that, and then people can get their confidence together or type into the comments there. So let's just go over to here. So this is essentially what Tapestry looks like when you're going through the web, and you can go in through a tablet, but through Safari or Chrome or whatever browser you have there on your tablet, or of course through a PC or Mac or Chromebook or whatever. You would go in through the web browser, and if we go in here, you can see, lo and behold, there's my observation that I made earlier on the tablet, and it's showing me that it's not in the journal. So I could be you know, looking at the observations and adjusting them from here. I can quite easily from here go add to journal, and then it's done. There's no not in journal. It's now in the journal, and it's now visible to relatives. Okay, and it shows me there the assessments that I put in. Let's just look at some of the other bits and pieces in here. Now there's all sorts available now. Tapestry has, you know, become more and more fully featured, which is great, but it can also be a little bit overwhelming possibly. So in control panel, this is one more for the managers, you see under features here, you can have stuff on or have stuff off. So, you know, I can go in and turn something off if I want it off, and then that's going to disappear from the top here.